Hello everyone, my name is Ziomaro and welcome to Battlerite Sage. Today I want to talk about something a little bit more abstract, which is the Battlerite mindset. All games that you play, whether they're athletic sports, board games or esports, each of them have a certain mindset that you have to be in to succeed. And just like with other games, people play for all sorts of different reasons and they play at different levels, so the mindset changes depending on what your aspirations are. So like if you're a 40-year-old playing amateur football to stay fit or because you just enjoy playing it, then you probably have a very different approach to the game than a 14-year-old would who wants to become a professional. And the same thing applies in video games. Some people have professional aspirations because esports are a thing. There are people who play games for money, and other people play games just to blow off steam and to play with friends. When you're matched up with other players in solo queue, it's important to remember that not everyone has the same goals as you. It sounds like I'm just introducing the video, but I'm actually kind of saying this as a disclaimer. The video is aimed at people who want to reach champion or higher, but first remember that if you're playing in silver, there are going to be a lot of people who think they'll never climb higher than low gold, so they won't even bother trying to develop the mentality that it takes to reach champion. And that's okay, but what I'm saying is just be positive and be pleasant to people because it does actually help you get in the right mindset anyway. So, disclaimer out of the way, what makes the Battlerite mindset different from, let's say, League of Legends, CS, or Overwatch? The first thing that comes to mind is the almost complete lack of strategy. There's no hero draft, so you don't know what your opponents are going to play, so there's no counterpicking. You can't re-pick mid-game like in Overwatch, and there aren't multiple objectives or eco rounds like in CSGO. So the absolute pinnacle of strategy in Battlerite is knowing how your enemy plays. Either because you've played against them before, or because you've noticed something about their playstyle in a previous round. Like, if you notice the enemy Rygon is really aggressive and blows all his cooldowns early, then you know to look out for that and punish it. But honestly, some of that stuff you can kind of incorporate into tactics anyway. If you're unfamiliar with the difference between strategy and tactics, strategy is your overall game plan. So, which heroes you pick. Who will you focus? In a game like CSGO, do you go for point A or point B? And then tactics are the smaller decisions you make along the way. So in Battlerite, this would be stuff like, if Rook charges me, then I'll use my space to get away from him. Or when I hear Jade snipe, I'll jump on her because I know she's standing still. When you're starting out, these are things that you'll sort of go through in your head, so it is a little bit strategical. But once you get more experienced in the game and you're really experienced with a particular character or a particular matchup, then you don't go into the game with, if Jade snipes, then I'm going to jump on her. It's just something you instinctively do. And that's what makes it tactics. So Battlerite is an incredibly tactical game. And that's what sets it apart from most modern games. Most games do involve a good degree of strategy, but Battlerite doesn't have much of it. In that respect, it's got more in common with fighter games like Mortal Kombat or Super Smash Bros. Or whatever. Just like in those games, you have a series of fast-paced decisions that you have to make in the moment. When I used to play Bloodline Champions, which is Battlerite's predecessor, I used to watch a lot of tennis. And yes, I know, that's a very English thing to do. But being a fan of tennis actually gave me a real leg up for my mindset in this game. In a strange way, Battlerite is kind of a lot like tennis in that it's much more tactical than it is strategical. Like in tennis, you might know that your opponent's backhand is stronger than their forehand, so you'll try and place shots on their weaker side. But once the point gets going, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So you have to make all these tactical decisions as you go along. And there's also a bunch of terminology that crosses over quite nicely. In tennis, you have forced and unforced errors. This translates really well into Battlerite. So popping your cooldown and not getting it hit is an error. If you just mistimed the counter and nobody hit it, then that's an unforced error. On the other hand, someone might bait you into using your counter. Like they might do a fake cast or they might miss you on purpose. And that would be a forced error. There's also something people say quite often in tennis, which is to just play each point one at a time. It doesn't matter if it's the first point of a game or if it's match point in the finals of a tournament. You just focus on each point the same way. That kind of mentality is really important in Battlerite. If your opponent leads 2-0, then don't start playing desperately. You're just making things worse. You can adjust your strategy slightly, like if you noticed a weakness in their game, but other than that, just play the round like any other round. Try not to think about the fact that you need to win 3 rounds in a row to bring the game back, because that will just throw you off your game even more. Likewise, if you're 2-0 up and it's your diamond rank up game, then don't think about that third round any differently from any of the others. Just stay focused and keep your head in the moment. One of the reasons I said at the start of the video to be pleasant to other people is to keep yourself in the right mindset. So if your Jade messes up and it was clearly a mistake, you don't need to say anything. All that does is it takes your head out of the next round, and the Jade's going to feel bad, or they're going to feel angry about it, and it's going to take their head out of the game as well. If they mess up and then they say my bad or something like that, then just say something encouraging and then move on. If my teammates mess up and they apologize for it, I'll usually just say, don't worry about it, happens to everyone. I just think saying something like that, it makes your ally feel more comfortable, keeps their head in the game, keeps your head in the game, and then you just go into the next round with a fresh head. The only time I might make a criticism is if our Rygon or something is constantly behind a wall while I'm getting zoned by our enemy Croak. At the end of the round, I'll just ask them if they can help peel the Croak or something. So I try and phrase it like a suggestion rather than a criticism. But sometimes you'll get the odd person who's just quick to get angry and they'll say something like, I was killing their healer and Jade and you were in a 2v1. In that case, your best thing is to not rise to it and just say to the other person on your team, right, let's just push up with Rygon then. You have basically no control over what your teammates do. So your best bet is to just always work with whatever you've got. Like if you have overly aggressive teammates, you can use that to your advantage and just play really aggressive as well. In any case, don't start blaming your teammates. I'm not saying this to try and make the community a better place and be less toxic, although it's always nice when people are nice to each other. But when you start blaming, your head's out of the game. You may not even realize you're doing it, but you'll start focusing on what your teammates are doing wrong rather than focusing on your own game. So you're too busy watching that Rukan hit every counter, but meanwhile the enemy Destiny's charging up a right click on you and you just get spell blocked. So now instead of one mistake, that's two mistakes, and that's your fault this time. One final point I'd like to touch on isn't unique to Battlerite, but it actually applies to all games. There are two types of players, ones who strive for success and ones who avoid losses. Before I say anything else, which one of these do you think is a more productive attitude? This is something that I actually have to remind myself of quite a lot. When you're at the highest rank you've ever been, it's really easy to get stuck in the mindset of keeping your rank. But the problem is when you start thinking like that, is you stop trying to win and you start trying not to lose. It's a subtle difference, but it does change your approach to a lot of things. When you're trying not to lose, you tend to play a bit too safe. So as a healer, I might get a situation like I'm topping up Rook on health, but meanwhile, the enemy Sirius is totally out of position, he's totally out of cooldowns, but I'm just there thinking, keep Rook alive, we can't let him die, we can't lose this round. But because of this, I'm almost completely oblivious to the fact that Sirius is in a really bad position. Instead of healing up Rook, I could be plowing damage into Sirius, and we could get him down from 80% to 20% health with my help. But without my help, he might only go down to 40%. And when you think about that 10% health that Rook needed seems kind of pointless in comparison. Damage windows in this game are really small, so you have to make the most of them whenever you see an enemy make a mistake. Try and avoid getting in a mindset where you're avoiding a loss. This also fuels the toxicity in the blame game. If you lose and you feel like you didn't make any mistakes, like you didn't hit any counters, you never overextended, but you still lost the game, then you're probably going to think, well, can't have been my fault, it must have been somebody else. But actually, there's a good chance that you might have played overly safe and contributed to the loss. So stop focusing on trying not to lose rounds and just always play to win. This video is a little bit different from what I normally do, but I think in Battlerite in particular, this mindset is just as important as your mechanical skill. Sometimes it's easy to focus too much on your aim and your dodging and all that sort of stuff, and you actually stop noticing important things. So it's important to always keep your head in the game. I hope you found this video useful, or at least interesting. If you did, then please feel free to subscribe because there's plenty more content like this coming. I'll be doing some more conventional tutorials this week, so stay tuned for that. But until next time, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.